come on in. You want to start crocheting? What's the essential tools that you need? Really simple, isn't it? Ball of wool, crochet hook, scissors. Is it as simple as that? Let's have a look. So we start with the wool, and I think that's always the best place to start. Now, there's so many different varieties of wool. You have your double knitting, your Aran, your chunky, your blanket one, you have your t-shirt yarn. There is so many out there. You can keep going as to what's the best and what's not. But for a beginner, I think it's really important to have a look at what yarn is the best for you to start with. Now, if it's too fine, it's going to take quite a long time for you to crochet up, and it's also not as easy to work with. The same goes for yarns such as this, which is the Bernard Baby Blanket. It's really thick, and you'd think, oh, that would be a good thing, but it's very hard to sometimes see the stitches that you've done. So I don't recommend that for somebody that's just starting out. What I'd recommend is ones that are like this, which is your double knitting, but it does take a little bit longer with that as well to crochet, but it does come out very well. You can see what you're doing really well, and if you start it with a small project, then that would be ideal. Another one that's good to start with is your chunky wool. Now, it's not too big that you can't see your stitches, but it does make up nice and quickly. Same with Aran. I don't actually have an Aran on the table, hold on. That's one I was using last night. So this is your Aran wool, and again, it's slightly thicker as well. So projects that you're doing, crochet up a little bit quicker, you can see that end results, because sometimes there's nothing more disheartening when you're starting out as a project can take a long time. I mean, a baby blanket can take a long time. However, if you're knitting it with something like this chunky wool, it will crochet up an awful lot quicker. The other thing I would say is that if you're using light yarns, it's better for you. The darker yarns are harder to see your stitches again as well, so therefore it's harder when you're first starting to crochet, because you need to be able to see where your stitches are to be able to crochet properly. Also, when you get your yarn, if you look at the back of the yarn, it shows you on there what size needle to use and what size crochet hook to use. On this one, it shows you right here your needles, your knitting needles, and what size to use. So it is just on that label for you to be able to see. Now, normally the ones I use the most is a 5mm hook and a 4mm hook. Now, the 4mm hook I use with my double knitting. My 5 I tend to use with my Aran. However, there's a big variety in hooks, and obviously if you're using the chunkier ones, then you need bigger needles. So I do have a nice big range in here, as you can see. They go from the very tiny ones, which is, I can't even read what it is. It is a 2mm, all the way up to this really big chunky one here at the side, which is a 15mm. So there's lots of different ones that you can use, and it depends on what the wool is that you're using. Or as well, if you're wanting sometimes bigger gaps and holes, you want it to be a little bit looser work, then you can use a hook that's a bigger size for your particular project. It depends what you're looking for. So as a beginner though, I would recommend that you go for a very easy project, something that's smaller, so baby hat. Granny square is a lovely thing to start with, because it makes up reasonably quickly, and then you can join them together to make something else, whether it be bags, cushion covers, blankets, whatever you might fancy. But you see that squares finish, and you can make them in varieties of colours, so it's less maybe boring to start with as a starter, as a beginner, because you can see that completion coming. But a smaller project is what I would say would be the best thing to do to begin with. The other thing I would suggest you not doing is not using a textured wool, because sometimes they're very awkward when you're looking at. Now, this one is a textured wool, and it changes in what it looks like. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, but it can be harder when you're crocheting with that wool. You get ones that have, you know, netting look. There's lots of different varieties of bobbly ones, but when you're crocheting with them, it's really hard to see what you're doing, and I think for a beginner that's probably not the best thing to do. Again, with changing colours, yes, it's lovely to change colours, but I think maybe to begin with, if you're wanting to just start and you're an absolute beginner, I would suggest using, if you wanted to have different colours, using one like this which has the variated colours. So you do so much and it actually comes out in one colour and then it changes as you go along the project. So it does give you a different look to it, so it does have that variated colours, but it's not that you're having to change them, because I think that can be a bit complicated to begin with. That's something to do as you go along, and that's something that I do have tutorials on and you will be able to have a look at and attempt yourself. But I think if you're an absolute beginner, just use maybe a variated colour. I think that's probably the best idea. So I would say for a beginner, the best thing to do is to use either a double knitting, an Aran, or a chunky to begin with, and get yourself the right size of hook to go with it. Now you can buy a full set, but obviously if you're just starting, you want to know whether you're going to enjoy it or not. So you can simply go along, you can buy yourself a single ball of wool and a single crochet hook that goes with it. And that way you know what you're doing. Now, if we move on to the crochet hooks, these are very cheap aluminium ones. I happen to love these and I love the colours on them, that's just me. But you can get a variety of different ones. Now there's ones that's ergonomic ones, so therefore they help when you're crocheting a lot for your hands. They help you to, you know, to do a lot more. Although I find these are perfectly good for me. You can get wooden ones, you can get bamboo ones. There's a huge variety out there. And it really depends on what suits yourself. As I say, you can buy a little one like this for probably £1 or £2 in any of the hobby shops around. You don't need anything more expensive to start with, because you want to know whether you're going to enjoy it. And the same for these wools. You can buy a nice cheap one, maybe for £1 or £2, so it's not going to cost you a lot to start. Now, along with these, you do need some other things. So, a nice little pair of scissors, because obviously you have to cut your work. Now, I happen to have this lovely little pair as well that I got as a gift. That's something else to remember as you go along. Birthdays, Christmases, put things on your list that you happen to like the look of. The other thing you'll need is a darning needle to finish in all your ends. And that's a job that I always take. You can buy packs of them, so you can get different varieties of sizes, from the very big to the slightly smaller. It's whatever suits you. Again, I tend to use the same one all the time. Just what I do. So you will need, those are the things you will have to have. So wool, crochet hook, scissors, and a darning needle. Those are the things you have to have. Now, as you carry on, that will give you a taster, let you be able to know what you think of it and give you a taster. Now, things to help you as you go along that I think as a beginner it would be an advantage for you to have are things such as these. I will put little pictures in of some of these so that you can see them a bit clearer, because obviously I'm holding them up, but it's not so easy to see. So these are stitch markers, and they're very handy to have for if you're coming and you're maybe working in the round. You'll learn about that as you go along. Where the end of your work, your row is, so that you can find that. Also for if you're changing certain stitches, if you need to know where they are, they're absolutely perfect. I use them all the time especially when I'm crocheting in the round, because I find that they help me to keep my place, because otherwise I'd get lost myself. The other thing which is good to have now, this is a little manual one, it's a stitch counter. Now, I don't usually use it for actually counting my stitches, I tend to use it for counting rows, but sometimes when you're doing a big project and you're looking at maybe 140 odd stitches along them or so on, stitch counters can be good. Now you can get ones that you actually put onto your crochet hook, and they will actually count the stitches as you're doing them, and that I believe would be very handy when you're doing that, because otherwise for myself I'm always recounting them. This I tend to use for my rows, because you do end up maybe not knowing how many rows you've done when you need a specific number in a particular pattern, so it's important for you to know, and this I find invaluable. You can get ones on your phone as well, so that could be an option if that's what you'd like to do. So those two extra tools I believe is really important. Now there's lots of other gadgets and gizmos out there that you can get which are really handy, and as you go along you may find, yeah, I would like to actually work with those as well. Absolutely fine. But for a beginner, I would say get the essentials, get your wool, get your crochet hook, get your scissors, and get your darn and needle so you can put in your ends. Those are the things to begin with, and just get one of each to begin with so that you know whether it's something that you like, and then you can expand from there. Now, I do have a number of tutorial videos coming out down on my channel, so I've got some down there already. Good ones for you to start with, things that introduce you to crochet if it's something that you want to begin with. And what I'd love to hear from you is what you've done, how you've got on, whether you've enjoyed it. If there's anything that you've looked at and got, I don't understand that, please let me know and I'll see if I can update you on how to do that. But also, I'd love to see your finished projects as well. So really nice to know how you got on. I will have another video coming out very soon. I do have another couple of tutorials coming out. So one of those is how to finish in ends, how to weave them in so that your project is finished properly, how to change your colour on your project so that you can change your wool colours, because that's always handy to know as well. And also I have my magic ring one coming out. That's something that you'll learn about as you go along. Hope your projects go really well, and would love to see you back here again. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying this, and if you want anything more, put it in the comments down below. Thank you for watching.